Think for the man. The irrefutable argument from God, of God, for God, whatever, from God, for God. It doesn't matter. It's not irrefutable. It's not even an argument. Let's check it out.
The consequences of no God is a very powerful impetus in my life to belief. As odd as it sounds, I always tell people I come to God through the back door, not through the front door. The front door is God has appeared to you in some way or whatever, and I never knock that for anyone who has that experience. I have not. To me, the most powerful rational argument is the consequences of the death of the divine. When the chaos and indeed ultimately evil that ensues, if I understand that without X nothing exists, then X must exist. I'm not a physicist. I don't think in the algebraic terms, but that's how I think. The greatest argument for God is what happens without God.
Well, it seems to be, in some sense, the most irrefutable argument. I would say
That's
I
right,
came to
that's
my
right.
belief the same way. It's like, well, Nietzsche said God is dead, and what's going to happen? His prognostication was, oh, nihilism and psychological catastrophe, and then mass murder on a scale unparalleled.
But other than
which
that,
was exactly right. Which was exactly right.
But Nietzsche would just call this.
Okay, so there you have it. One giant appeal to consequence. And that could be it. We could just say, well, both Prager and Peterson have appealed to a giant consequence that without this thing, there's madness and insanity. And Prager, of course, says, that without this, nothing else could exist, so it must exist. But of course, you would need proof for that, which he doesn't offer here. But let's focus on that appeal to consequence. Peterson mentions Nietzsche. There's been others who have said that without God, X, Y, or Z will be truth. It won't be objective moral values, or that life will be pointless or meaningless or whatever. It's like, okay, and what's your argument? Because it's just it's a consequence, okay? And if so, what? So we're supposed to accept that it's true because we don't want the consequence to be true. But who made that consequence? That is to say, who's to say what happens with or without God? It is not the non believer, it is the believer that sets forth what kind of universe we would have if there wasn't a God. That is part of their concept of God. Well, God is good. So if you don't have good, then, well, there's no good. Therefore, that would be bad. So there must be good. Or that, well, God is the source of objective morals. So without that, you wouldn't have objective morals. So they're but we do have objective morals. So there has to be God, see? But they're injecting what the consequence is into their belief. Nietzsche believed that without God, whatever would happen. Now, he might have been right in some circumstances or some perception of it, but in a larger view, it appears to be wrong. Secular countries seem to fare better than religious ones. The farther away from dogma we get, the better society seems to function. Of course, now we're seeing it tip the other way, that there is a religion, but it is of a different nature, that one we're not used to dealing with. What do we do about that religion? How do we handle this new ideology that appears to be coming into existence or has already been in existence, but now we're aware of it. This culture war. Of course, culture is always at war, but, what do we do about it? Well, we don't appeal to consequence. We say, well, if there is no X, then this horrible, terrible thing will happen. How do you know that? You're just making that up, as far as I can tell. But it's not an irrefutable argument. It's not even an argument. You would think that these men would know better. I mean, Prager, no, but Peterson, maybe. I don't know about the rest of these nitwits, but yeah. So that's it. It is an appeal to consequence, but more and deeper, worse than that, the consequence itself has been invented whole cloth by the one that created the idea of the God in the first place.